In Steven Universe, the Gem Empire came to Earth somewhere around 5,000 years ago. This would have been around the year 3000 BC on our calendar, a time when mankind would not have been very developed, with the majority of societies being either nomadic or hunter-gatherers. What little we see of the humans at this time does seem to confirm that. In a previous video, we theorized that some of the armor used during the Great Gem War, which would have taken place somewhere between 3000 and 2000 BC, belonged to the gems themselves. All of this armor looks very similar to the armor that humans would use throughout history, but some of these designs wouldn't be seen on humans for several thousand more years, with the latest designs being just a few hundred years away from when the Gem War would have ended. It would seem to me that the humans in Steven's world actually modeled their own suits of armor off of relics from the Gem War that certain societies had discovered or held on to, such as the samurai armor, which existed during the rebellion as we can see in Rose's secret armory, but wouldn't be seen used by humans until about 2,000 years later. It is safe to assume that humans stole the ideas and perhaps even the design of armor from the gems. But it does raise the question, what else might humans have stolen from the gems throughout history? For those of you who like to take the more sci-fi elements of the show seriously, but have trouble reconciling with the show's need to move the plot forward at an adequate pace, I have a theory that might fill in a few supposed plot holes for you. I am, of course, speaking about the fact that gems seem to naturally not just understand English, but they speak it as well. There could be an argument made that gems can adapt their language the same way that they adapt to the gravity of different planets or moons. A lot of fans believe that if a gem encountered another alien race speaking another alien language, they would immediately begin speaking that language fluently, so gems would be using the same adaptive quality to speak English. With this theory in mind, if the gems happen to encounter someone while traveling through Korea, for instance, they would suddenly start speaking Korean as well. However, when Steven starts traveling off-planet, he and other humans are able to understand what the gems are saying as well, even things that aren't being said for their own benefit. His entire trial uses the English language, the off-colors speak it despite being isolated for millennia, even Blue Diamond's comb sings in English, and characters like Lars and Connie have no trouble keeping up with what all of these gems are saying. This would suggest that English is actually a language developed by the Gem Empire, and that humans learned it from the gems, probably during the rebellion 5,000 years ago. If we were to assume that the gems had their own separate language on Homeworld, but that they could adapt their language settings to communicate with other life forms, then why would the Zoo Men be speaking English as well? They were taken from Earth thousands of years before the English language came to exist in our world, so who would have taught it to them if not for the gems? It's not like they could be programmed with an adaptive language setting just to understand and communicate with Greg and Steven, especially since their version of English is rather simplistic compared to Steven or the gems. This indicates that the gems do in fact speak English very similarly to the humans, and that the human zoo ended up developing their language to be more simplistic due to their isolation. According to Greg, a lot of people died back during the rebellion, indicating that they possibly fought alongside the gems during the war. After all, if Connie can do it, why couldn't an entire army of humans? The crystal gems likely would have taught them their language in order to better understand one another. There are other signs of things humans could have learned from the gems as well. After all, even religion and mythology on Steven's planet seems to be inspired by the gems. The location of the final battle, which is now known as the Giant Strawberry Patch, was revealed to take place in Norway, and seemed to influence the Norse mythology about Ragnarok, which describes battles between giants fighting for good versus evil and the fate of humans, almost as if giant fusions were doing battle there, as indicated by the giant axes that were left behind. But the biggest hint of all that language could have been something learned from the gems is actually in their written language. While humans in Western society may have created a new written language of English for the gems' oral language, it would seem that the Eastern societies did the opposite, creating new spoken languages but using pieces of the written language left behind by gems on their structures. According to various sources online, the gem written language, referred to as gemglyph in the show, is actually made up of mostly Korean symbols, with some also being recognizable in Chinese or Russian. If they can adapt the written language in the East, then I don't see why they couldn't adapt the oral language in the West, thus creating the English language in Steven Universe. It is certainly an interesting possibility, but what do you all think? Does this theory hold up? Do you think the Crooniverse intended this? Or is it just a good headcanon to help fill in the plot holes for why everyone in the universe speaks English in this show? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.